So, hello everyone. I'm Michaela, and today we welcome Laura Von Murray to the soundtrack of our lives. She's going to talk to us about her latest singles and her upcoming EP, her creative process, and journey navigating the industry. So, we're really happy to have you.
Thanks. It's really nice to be here.
Yeah, so you just, or not just, because it's been a couple years, graduated. So, how did the college experience transform your vision of yourself as a musician?
I think first I went to London to study music. So I went pretty far away from home. I'm American. I was born in Boston and raised in the
Oh,
suburbs.
me too.
Really?
I'm from Winchester.
Winchester.
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from Westford.
Oh, nice. That's so
I was
funny.
raised in Westford. I was born in Newton. My sister was born in Brighton. And then my dad and my mom moved further into the suburbs for the nice school district. So I went to Westford Academy. But anyways, yeah, so I went to London to study music, and it was a really fun, formative, interesting time. And I think it was kind of really good and really scary that I went to a completely different country to do it. And your question was, how did it shape?
And like change your view of yourself as an artist.
Well, I think it forced me to actually think of myself maybe as an artist for the first time, because I think I have a kind of like a really strong cringe factor. Like when people say like I'm an artist, like to me, like I don't know why, but I have like maybe just some like really deep East Coast shame where I'm
Hmm.
just like, I should be a working woman who does like, I don't know, like contributes to the economy in a
Hmm.
more modern way. Like I didn't necessarily want to be an artist. I wanted to grow up and I feel like do what all my friends did and go and get degrees and be, I don't know, an engineer or something. But it just became very clear that that would never be who I was. And I had to learn to embrace that.
Hmm.
My dad is a pianist and a piano teacher. And so I grew up playing music and learning music, and music has been my whole entire life. And I shouldn't really be surprised that I'm here. But it took kind of going to London and kind of getting all the way through the experience of going to college there for me to really learn to embrace and not like shy away from saying, you know what, I am an artist,
Hmm.
It's kind of the only thing I really am. And when I think about it, it's the only thing I've ever been good at. So I'm not going to shy away from that label and whatever it means to be, a starving artist or any of the other things that kind of get associated with being an artist of some kind. I was like, I'm going to embrace everything that comes with it, the good and the bad. And there's been a
Hmm.
lot of both. There's been a whole lot of good, or I wouldn't be here, I'd say.
That's awesome. And I totally understand, getting far away from home to discover who you are. I feel like that's a very
Mhm.
common thing.
Yeah.
So, can I ask why you decided to go to London and not somewhere in the US?
It was cheaper. Yeah, I didn't want to go into debt. I didn't want to Berkeley School of Music, University of Southern California, NYU. Those are
Hmm.
all schools that offer, and I looked at amazing music programs, but just the ticket price on top of having to live in those really expensive cities just wasn't something I wanted for myself. Because it's enough of a risk as it is, I think, deciding to study or pursue music at all.
Hmm.
I didn't want the added pressure of being like, well, I better make it really big, or I better turn this into a career of some kind in the music industry that will
Hmm.
help me pay these enormous loans or whatever. So it was actually really a financially motivated decision that led me to London. I went and I toured the campus and I met with the dean, and I liked the program and the faculty, and it just seemed like London was a place that could really push me outside my comfort zone, and that's exactly what it did. So even though it was financially motivated to start, it was also because I was just like, I think this is the place for me. This place terrifies me. I think this is exactly where I should
It's good. You got to face your fears.
be. Exactly.
Yeah. So, you started off creating dance music. So, how did you change from that to indie pop?
I actually, growing up, I was always writing pop songs at the piano and then later at the guitar. And it actually wasn't until I got to London that I fell into the dance music industry that I started to make dance music. So really, that was actually not planned at all. I went assuming that I was going to be songwriting and producing pop music of somewhere along the vast
Mm.
spectrum that pop music includes. But I just happened to meet a couple guys at a party who had a studio and told me I could come over sometime and check out all the cool synths. I told them I was really interested in learning more about synthesizers. They were like, we've got a great collection. And that's how I ended up kind of falling into a mentorship relationship with a guy named Henry Smithson, who goes by the name Riton. And he did a lot of kind of the background production work for Diplo Records, and for, Mark Ronson and Diplo
Hmm.
do have a duo called Silk City. And he did a lot of work on those, and he has his own prolific career just as a solo artist as Riton, and he's really a genius, especially when it comes to synthesis and when it comes to dance music. And I found it was really infectious. I expected to go there and go like, okay, well, it might not be the exact genre I want to be in, but I'm going to learn so much about the industry and about synthesizers and about kind of the modern form, how we construct songs in the modern format in the Spotify era and all that kind of stuff. I thought I was going to learn a lot and take away what I needed and leave what I didn't, but I ended up falling in love with dance music. And so while I was over there, I fashioned myself kind of like a dance music identity, which was Kersey, which is the street I grew up on when I was a kid. And it wasn't until I kind of got all this dance music out of my system that I was like, maybe I should return to my roots and actually just put out a pop record. And so I've decided to keep those two things separate. So as Laura Von Mari, I'll be releasing a lot of projects as a pop artist. And even though I don't have as much time for dance music as I did in the past, I'm still working on it. And I still will release music as Kersey, and hopefully still will get to DJ from time to time. But yeah, so it was completely unplanned, but I don't think the record would sound half as good as it does without all the things I learned from that chapter of my life.
So you said you're never gonna, mesh them together. I was gonna ask if you've ever thought about that, but obviously you have.
I have actually, and I'm working on a song, or it's actually mostly done. It needs sent off to the mix engineer, and a lot of when you release a song isn't necessarily like I'm done, it's ready. It's about when and where it fits into the narrative arc of your journey as an artist.
Yes.
And so I have a bunch of singles that I'm going to release. I have an EP that I'm going to release, another couple singles, and then somewhere down the line, I've made a really awesome fusion dance pop track that I'm hoping showcases the perfect mix of exactly what I bring to the table from like a groove and songwriting perspective, with all of the incredible infectious dance energy that I love about like house music. And yeah, so stay tuned because that one's definitely coming out sometime in the next year or so.
Very exciting. Yes, you mentioned other music. What can you share about the music that you have coming out soon?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in May, I released my first single, which was called "Fuck You." Might have to bleep that.
No,
I don't know
you're
what.
good.
I'm good. All right. It's called "Fuck You." It's bleeped on Spotify. It's literally like F asterisk asterisk K. I mean, you can. I don't know what the rules are around it, but that
We
felt
just have
right.
to say it's explicit.
It's explicit. Yeah. So that I started by releasing that in May, on like May 12th, I think. And then towards the end of June, and I've just released another single called Different Road, which I'm really excited about. Go stream it. I also have another single coming out either at the end of July or the beginning of August called Forevermore. And then I'll be releasing the whole EP. The whole EP is actually titled Forevermore. And so the last single that I release will be, is it the eponymous track off the album? Is that what it means?
Title track?
Yeah, the title track.
Yeah.
Sure. The title track of the album. I'm not even sure I know what eponymous means. Shouldn't use words I don't know what they mean. But that'll be the title track of the album. I'm really excited to release that one. And then the whole EP will come out either late August or early September. So I'm trying to trickle out like a consistent stream of quality releases that lead up to a 5-song EP. I'm going to keep under wraps what the other songs on there are.
I will tell you, I did get a chance to listen to it, and it is amazing. So
fantastic! I'm really glad you had a chance to listen to it, but lips are sealed.
Yes. I understand.
So then you know that what the other two missing are going to be coming out in late August or sometime in September. And then after that, I mean, as I'm sure you can believe, I have a hard drive's worth of stuff that I've been sitting on through the pandemic, waiting for the right time. And it's had to go through mix and mastering engineering. But this whole project is, I would call it kind of the Forevermore project, because that's the name of the EP. And all 5 of these songs were written with the intention of releasing an EP with these 5 songs on it. And so I'm just excited to get this project, because you can imagine this project's been kind of done in my mind for about a year now.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move on to other stuff, but I'm really excited. It's given me the opportunity to re-enjoy work that I had previously put on the shelf and called done, is now just very new and fresh to people who've just heard it. And I've gotten some really lovely feedback and responses of people saying they can't stop listening. That just makes my day to hear, because sometimes when you hear a track you've worked on for as long as I've worked on some of these tracks, you're like, if I ever hear this song again, I'm gonna throw this laptop out the window. But it by hearing other people say that they like it, it almost gives me permission to be proud again of what I've made. So I'm excited that it gets to have this chapter where it's no longer just for me to be proud of and enjoy, but for me to be proud of and share.
Very exciting for you. I'm excited for everyone to hear them because they are amazing.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
So what aspects of the indie pop, and I guess also you can talk about dance as well, the dance music, what drew you to that specific genre?
I don't really know that it was ever a conscious choice. I was, for a lot of years, I was just songwriting as a lot of people do at a piano with my voice or at a guitar with my voice. It took a long time to go from being like, 14 and just like writing objectively terrible pop songs, just sitting alone in a room,
Yeah.
to being my own producer and coming up with a sound that fit it. I don't know that I ever made the conscious choice for indie pop. And I'm not even sure I know the definition of indie pop other than that it's independent artists making pop music.
Hmm.
And that's what I am. I don't
Right.
think there's all that much that separates what I've made here in terms of, hopefully, in terms of like the quality of the songwriting and a lot of the aspects of the quality of production from mainstream pop music. The difference
Hmm.
being that I made this without the interference or the oversight
Hmm.
of a label, a manager, the kind of stuff that comes along with a music career in the mainstream. And so in that way, I could say I was drawn to it in the sense of I've always been really fiercely autonomous about what I make. I'm very specific about help. I don't have a lot of help. I can
Hmm.
point to the specific moments in every single song in which I will tell you somebody else actually played the bass for that.
Hmm.
Someone else actually played that little guitar riff that you hear right there. But for the most part, everything you hear is mine. And I'm very like fiercely protective of that. Even when it gets frustrating and you feel like you just need a little bit of help, I sometimes won't allow it to myself because I'm very proud. And I'm like, no, you know what? This song just won't come out until you learn how to play the bass. Like I really like and I relish it in the challenge of being able to do it all myself. And in that
Hmm.
sense, indie pop really appeals to me because I think it allows you to be more experimental and more independent. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very protective of what I make and I like doing it kind
Mhm.
of mostly all by myself.
Do you think you're going to continue for the rest of your career to do it by yourself, or would you eventually accept help?
I think of absolutely eventually I would accept help. Yeah, I already have. I'm
Right.
not saying this is if I got here without any help. I had an incredible mix engineer named Greg
Hmm.
Ogan, who I flew to LA last fall to begin mixing on these tracks. And these tracks would sound terrible without the work that he was able to do.
Hmm.
And his title may be mix engineer, but there is artistry baked into every level of the engineering he's doing at a mix
Hmm.
level. And he also provided some additional production on a few of the tracks that I told him what I found so frustrating about these moments of the tracks, and he was
Hmm.
able to just with his all of his immense, enormous, lengthy career in the industry, working with everyone from like Sean Kingston to Britney Spears. He was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
I know exactly what it needs here," and I was like, "Oh my god, thank you," because I really, really didn't know what it needed right there. So I look forward to working with people in
Hmm.
the industry who share a love and a vision and a passion for making the highest quality product that it's
Yeah.
possible to make, and opening the doors a little bit and not being so protective. I'm really
Hmm.
excited. I'm really excited to do that, and I'm excited to do it and mess up. It's not as if it has to be perfect.
Right.
It's just in college I felt like I was really, really pushing perfection,
Hmm.
and I was surrounded by a bunch of other people who were also searching for their own version of perfection. And I was like, why
Hmm.
would I want these people in the studio with me? They're just as lost as I am.
Yeah.
It's like having two people driving a car and
Yeah.
one of them doesn't know where they're going and the other one doesn't know where they're going. It's like not helpful,
Yeah.
There were some really amazing learning experiences baked into the process, the trial and error of can we make a track together, and some things that came out that were actually really fun to make. But ultimately, I found I really enjoyed doing it on my own. And I think even as I go forward, of course, while I'll accept help, I really hope to at some point be able to work with some kind of budget where I can bring in a session musician or two. I
Hmm.
really enjoy being the person who says what is and isn't happening. I
Hmm.
really, really like being in charge, being in control and going, no, no, I know exactly what chord needs to go here. It's this
Hmm.
one,
Well, then I guess it's good you're not part of a band.
No, I've never been in a band in my life. Some people, I think, a lot of people, like Phoebe Bridgers, like grew up playing in bands since she
Hmm.
was like a kid. That was like her whole thing. She was a live performer and she was a member of a band. I have never once in my entire life have I been in a band. I've never been that kid. I'm always like independent activities. Even when I played sports, I was like an all-state pole vaulter, which is a sport you do on your own,
Yeah.
So I've always been a bit of a lone wolf in that sense. Not to say
Hmm.
like I have no friends. It's just like if I know I'm a super duper Hermione, if I know I'm a super duper like bossy, I like it this way kind of person. I don't want
Yeah.
to subject anyone else to that. I'm happy bossing myself around, but I don't want to
Hmm.
subject anyone else to my perfection mania. I'm happy to just
Understandable.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you graduated right when the pandemic started? I can't remember the time anymore.
Yeah, February of 2020.
Yeah. So how did that impact your, transition from the dance to indie pop music?
Good question. It kind of effectively killed everything I had going, which sucked. I was living in London. I still had plenty of time left on my visa. I was going to stay. But when the pandemic hit, those first few days, I don't know whether you were in this country or out of this country, but doors were beginning to close. And
Yeah.
so it got kind of, it got to crunch time and I'm like, all right, there's a new virus. All right, we don't know how serious it is. And so I made the decision and my parents were like, you're making the decision to come home because I didn't want to be trapped in a country that I have no legal citizen. I have no citizenship there. I was a resident, a perfectly legal, law-abiding resident, but I was not a citizen. It was not my country. I was paying rent. It's an expensive city. And there was no guarantee that this pandemic was going to be done in 2 weeks or 2 years. Exactly. So it just made no sense for me to stay for 100,000 reasons. And while I was really sad to leave, I'm glad I did because I really think you can only go forward in life and not backward. And if I'm being honest, once the pandemic hit, I had gotten everything that London was ever going to give me out of that time. Because once the pandemic hit, it had nothing left to give.
Yeah.
Things didn't open up for a very long time, and I would have ended up coming home anyways, months later after having spent countless weeks in quarantine in an apartment with roommates. And, so I came home and that effectively ended that chapter of my life. And I moved to Seattle. My sister lives out there. It was a good place for me to go. That was a different city, had a completely different scene. I was like, I can't go back to Boston. I'm not doing it. I was just not. So while I went there at first for the first few months of the pandemic, when everybody was kind of on lockdown, I moved out to Seattle. I ended up working for So Far Sounds as a marketer. It was a really wonderful 2 years, and it gave me a lot of time to hone my skills as a musician, particularly at the guitar. I studied jazz guitar for 2 years straight.
Wow.
During the pandemic. Yeah, apparently I'm just not one to sit still. And then I think my time in Seattle here is done. The world has opened up again. And I think it's time for me to move to LA.
Yeah. So that's the next chapter of your life?
Yeah, I left dance music behind. I've just moved to LA just a matter of weeks ago, really. And while I continue to make dance music, I'm not really involved in the community there anymore, or partially. There's a group of female DJs over there that I'm still somewhat involved with. And I'm excited to release. I have another dance track I'll be releasing. I don't know whether it'll be in 2 months or in 7, but I have dance releases lined up to put out into the world under my other name, which is Kersey. And to do so properly this time, not just as some kind of university thesis project. I actually want to release it. And yeah, I hope not to close the door on dance music just by being in LA and it being more of a pop oriented world. It still brings me a lot of joy. It's kind of I don't know, maybe it's a weird way to describe it, but do you ever wonder if NASCAR drivers, what they do to unwind if they just go for a drive? Because it's not at all the same. Driving
it's
your
very
pickup
different.
truck, not at all. Driving your pickup truck down a country road is not at all the same as going 200 miles an hour around a race car track. That's what I think of dance music as. Is pop music, I have to put every last brain cell I have into it. Dance music, for whatever reason, I just get to feel more and think less. And so
I love that for you.
It's actually a really nice unwinding exercise to just be oh, your only job for this song is just to groove. Just to groove, just to feel. Don't obsess about syllables and don't obsess about vocal stacking, So I hope to do more of that in the future.
So your 2 singles that are out right now have to do with romance and heartbreak. So how do you balance the vulnerability that comes with sharing those personal experiences and emotions and also, keeping a little bit of that for yourself?
I don't know that it's much of a balancing act. I think it has more to do with the fact that I separate myself from what I've made. And I know the lyrics sound really vulnerable and they are, and that the initial seed of writing on a lot of my tracks is very vulnerable, and it starts from a point of view of I experienced this thing, it's time to tell this story, but I let the story go where it wants to go. And so sometimes I weave 2 narratives together, right? Different Road, for example, is absolutely at least 70% to do with the fact that I went through a breakup while I was in London, and I was really, on the one hand, filled with shame and regret that I had let what I had thought at the time was a really beautiful, wonderful relationship kind of slip through my fingers. How could I be so careless with something that meant so much to me? And at the other time, this undeniable, overwhelming feeling of relief that I got, being oh God, I'm free. I'm free. I actually get to drive my own road. I get to ride my own path. I get to make all my own decisions, and I don't have to be stuck looking in the rearview mirror and wanting to marry those 2 thoughts.
Yeah.
So to me, it wasn't very vulnerable. And the other thing is I don't think it's very vulnerable to talk about. I'm a very open person, and I think the people in my life would tell you that I'm not really a secret keeper. I don't feel the need to share everything, but if asked, the people in my life know the stories of the most significant things that have happened.
Hmm.
And I just really believe, and I'm a terrible liar. I'm an awful, awful liar. Like I'm a very transparent person and I don't have the ability to like hide things very well. So I
Hmm.
think I'm just vulnerable by nature,
Hmm.
which I don't think that means that I'm like easy to mess with. I just
Right.
think it means that I find there's strength in my transparency.
Hmm.
And so I don't think there's much of a balancing act going on. On the one hand, it's just that I am a vulnerable person and I have these stories that I would like to tell. In addition to some of the details are sometimes you just put in what rhymes. Like, did we actually go to the beach together? No. But did I put in something that rhymed? Absolutely. That was a
Hmm.
dumb example. But like sometimes as a songwriter, you need to use language creatively and playfully and choose. It doesn't always fit 100% the
Hmm.
story. It doesn't mean the arc of the story isn't truthful. And then on the other hand, aside from just being kind of like an open and vulnerable person, once a song is done, it's kind of like a gone. It's kind of like separate from me. It
Hmm.
becomes this other thing that I almost don't even feel comfortable saying that it represents me or that it belongs to me because like I'll get people who ask me questions like, oh wow, how did you choose these chords? I'm like, I don't know, I just thought them up one day. And they're like, oh, how did you pick these lyrics? I'm like, I actually don't even remember writing that. I mean, I know I did because it's written in
Hmm.
my notebook somewhere. I know at one point I was sitting down and I thought I could hold 1 million in my hand and you'd tell me you got your own money to blow. At some point I thought that and I wrote it down and I turned it into a song. But it's
Hmm.
so once it leaves, it's so cathartic. Once it leaves your body, it doesn't feel like a part of me. It feels like this other entity that I live separately from. Kind of like a kid, maybe. Like people say when you have a child, the thing that you don't want to do is see them as an extension of yourself.
Right.
It's important to love and support your child apparently, but it's important not to see them as if they were you. It can
Right.
put a lot of weird complexes on them.
Yeah.
So like even though I see what I've made as very representative of me, it looks a lot like me, it talks a lot like me, it walks a lot like me, whatever it is that I'm seeing that I'm taking ownership of, piece of art that I've made, once it's out in the world, it's its own thing. So yeah, I have a just kind of I create some kind of dichotomy.
It's a very good way to separate yourself from it.
And I'm not even sure that it's voluntary. It's not something I rehearsed or practiced. I remember, I think in the past when I was making songs that sucked, I very much saw them as a representation of myself and like, man, I really wish the music I was writing didn't suck because it would be nice to be able to be proud of something I've made. And it weirdly, as soon as I became proud of something I'd made, I didn't even feel like I had ownership over it anymore. I was like, oh, it's made, it's out in the world. She's doing her own thing.
Hmm.
She's living her own life, you know? So yeah, I don't know how that I think it's healthy. I don't know how it happened, but I think I kind of healthily separate myself from what I've made and I'm ready to focus on, and I'm already ready to focus on new stuff. I just don't have the brain space to be both worried about something I already made and excited or worried or preoccupied with all the creative stuff I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It's just too much. You can't feel that much at once. You'd explode.
Yeah. That may, yeah.
Maybe I would.
So when you go to write a song, what does that process look like for you?
Historically, almost always at the piano, at some kind of piano, whether it's a MIDI keyboard, the grand piano in my dad's basement growing up, because he was a piano teacher and he taught out of our finished basement was his music studio, or I had an electric keyboard in my dorm room. I almost always start songs at the piano. And then from there, I move over to Logic. I do all my
Hmm.
production in Logic. It's the software my dad had on our studio computer growing up. So it's what I grew up using. I typically start a song with some kind of Rhodes or Wurlitzer emulation. And then I think this is uncommon. I think a lot of people write, they sit down and they write the lyrics and they hear the melody in their head and they write the whole song. And then they go, right, now let's do the chords to go along with it. I'll have like one phrase in my head and I'll have the chords to go with that phrase. And I won't know the story I want to tell until I'm sitting at the piano. And so it
Hmm.
happens simultaneously that I like move through the changes of the chords and I'll go, okay, that feels like a finished verse. Now it needs to be elevated. Now it needs to be bouncier. Do we want to change? Do I want to do a chromatic modulation? Do I want to like suddenly change keys? I'm thinking a lot about music theory and composition at the same time as I'm thinking about the story I want to tell. But yeah, almost always at a piano. And then since I started working on jazz guitar the past few years, there's one song that won't come out until the EP is done, and I composed that entirely at the guitar. And that was like a huge, exciting thing for me. I'm not sure I'm doing a very good job at all explaining to you how I write songs because I think that the truth of it is I have always written songs entrenched in what I'm doing at the moment.
Hmm.
I've written songs at a Juno synthesizer in the studios at school. I've written songs at a grand piano in my dad's basement. I've written songs at my Stratocaster in my bedroom in Seattle.
Hmm.
Like the medium is very much indicative of where I am in my life. And I really like to change and mix things up. I mean, you listened to the EP, so I think on the one hand, I believe truly that you would say that there's a cohesion to it.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I do truly believe that you would probably say that each song holds its own space and they're pretty distinct from one another. And I think it's because I never approach it the same way every time. Other than that, I almost always compose lyrics and chords happen at the same time for me when I sit down to songwriting. But now we're entering a new chapter in my life that I very want to be openly honest about what I'm doing now, which is more and more I've been sitting at my, sitting in the car and I'll have an idea and I'll have to pull over and I'll record voice memos or I'll just write down lyrics. And I've never been that way before. This is a new thing. Maybe it's as a result of doing so much songwriting at the piano that I finally feel like I don't need to be at the piano anymore. I can hear it in my head, but I can now I now have the notes on my phone are just filled with, I have 4 new songs that are almost the lyrics for which are entirely written, but that have no instrumentation behind them. And it's the first time I've ever worked like that. And I'm a little bit nervous. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. What do I just bring this to the piano and reverse engineer a song? But that's apparently how a lot of people do it. That's the more traditional way to do it, is lyrics and then music. So yeah, I don't think I do it the same way. And I think that you can tell each song feels different.
Yeah, they do. They feel different, but cohesive. Yes.
I think that's another reason why I didn't release an album maybe 2 years ago, is because I was just out of school and I was still finding what was cohesive. And I obviously I have a hard drive full of songs that are garbage and will not be on this album. But it's important. It's really, really, really important to make mediocre music.
Yeah.
It's important to just make. It's just important to get it out, to impulsively get it out. And then, for these 5 songs that have been released, there's probably 20 songs that I wrote. And these are the 5 good ones. These are the 5 strong ones. But yeah, so I don't do it the same. I don't do it the same instrument. I don't do it in the same geographic location. I don't do it in the same studio. I don't do it in the same outfit. I'm always doing something different when it comes to writing a song, experimenting with different ways of pulling them out of my consciousness and into logic.
Yeah. And how do you find the inspiration for your songs?
I don't know. I think that I just hear things. I think I just have always been that way. It's not that I'm necessarily inspired by any one thing. It's more that I hear, almost always it's a melody. I almost always hear a melody in my head, and then words will just somehow go along with it. And then as soon as the words and the melody are stuck together and I'm happy in my head with how it sounds, I'm like, oh, well, now I have to turn that into a song. It's less of an inspiration and more of a compulsion.
Okay. That makes sense.
And also there's this quote by Tchaikovsky that I mention a lot, where I'm pretty sure he referred to himself as no different from the shoemaker. What he meant by that was he was I don't wait until inspiration strikes. I'm a working musician. My job is to make, if I feel like it or not, I get up in the morning and I sit at my instrument and I write and I make music. And of course he would tell you, and I would tell you the same thing. There's sometimes where I get a sudden bolt of inspiration starts the project, but there's no such thing as, for me at least, a bolt of inspiration that completes the whole thing. It mixes it all together, plays all the instruments, comes up with a really catchy bridge, even when you only have a verse and chorus. Inspiration can't carry you. It's That's So Raven. Did you ever see That's So Raven? She has these moments where she's oh, and she sees into the future. It's that's how long it lasts. That's the amount of a glimpse I'm allowed to get of a song, is I'll have this moment where I'll be oh, I can hear a chorus, or oh, I can hear a melody line. That's all I get. Everything else is up to me and just persistent hard work to pull the rest of it into existence. But nothing at all inspires me. It comes out of nowhere. I write best when I have time alone to myself, and I write best when I have a lot of feelings, positive, negative, anxious. When I'm feeling an overwhelming amount of emotion, that's when I'm most likely and have downtime. When I'm feeling overwhelming amounts of emotion and I'm not distracted with something social, that's when something will come to me.
So how did you come up with the names? Was it Kiersey? Is that how you say it? Kiersey.
Yeah.
And then, the one you're using now, Laura Von Marie. How did you, why'd you decide that you wanted to go with that instead of what your name is?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I just feel like Laura Shapiro doesn't have the same ring to it. Maggie Rogers, she's got a great name, I don't know that I feel, and I also think I feel, maybe that's not fair to myself. I like my name. I think my name is perfectly fine. I just don't feel like it represents what I'm doing.
It's a different person almost, or a different entity.
Doctor. Laura Shapiro could be a lawyer. Laura Shapiro isn't a musical artist in my head, you know?
Okay.
It's also, I feel some ownership, some private ownership over my name that
Mhm.
like that's who I am in my real life. This is who I get to be when I'm expressing myself creatively. It
That makes
puts, maybe
sense.
this is another part of the dichotomy. It puts a layer of separation between my personal life and my life as a working creative.
Mhm.
And Kersey was the name of the street I grew up on. Apparently, the street I grew up on was named after the house. The developer of the neighborhood had an exchange student from Finland come stay with his family. This was like
Mhm.
back in the 70s or something. And her name was Kersey. And apparently, that's like a fairly common girl's name in Finland. And I read somewhere that Halsey named herself after the street she grew up on. And I was like, I could name myself after the street I grew up on. Boom, easy, done. And I had just moved to London, and it was like, you know, DJs often have like kind of a one or two syllable, you know, moniker.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is perfect. I'll use that.
Yeah, it wouldn't work with my street. It's russet.
No,
Like the potato.
it's russet.
Yeah. I feel like that wouldn't go, that doesn't go
It
as
doesn't
well.
have quite a ring to it.
I feel
No,
like
does it?
there are some street names that are perfect for that and others that are not so great.
Yes, I agree. I was fortunate enough to have the street I grew up on be a girl's name, or believably a girl's name, even though
Yeah.
I've never in my life have I met anyone named Kersey. I would probably have to go to Finland to meet someone named Kersey. But then in terms of changing it, it was basically, it was advised to me from someone in the industry to keep your genres separate. I never intended to make dance music, but I did, and then I released it under the name Kersey, and I appeared on a couple of little DJ radio shows, and like I did a couple of DJ gigs, just small stuff, and I started to associate that name with all of the dance music I was
Mhm.
making. And I thought maybe we'll just leave it for that, because what I'm making is so completely not house music. So maybe it's for the best that I have a name that's a little bit more, feels a little bit more pop adjacent. And
Mhm.
actually, for the first time, I wanted my first name. I wanted my first name to be a part of it. And then Von Mari is an anagram of my sister's name.
Oh, that's nice.
I was having a lot of trouble coming up with like a stage name, and I just read online that like anagrams of stuff helps. And
Mhm.
so I just started combining like family members' names. Like I have my mom, I have my other mom, I have two moms, I have my dad. Like I was like, what are we gonna do? And my sister's name is Maria Yvonne,
Mhm.
and we're very, very close. She's like my best friend. And I just thought, well, this is great. I'll intertwine our names together forever. And Vaughn means fun, means of in German.
Mhm.
Vaughn and Van, if you're like Dutch. So like Serena van der Woodsen from Gossip Girl, like her name is like Dutch or something.
Mhm.
Like, because Van means of. So it would be like Laura of Maria, I guess. Well, that's weird when I think about it. I don't know. Try not to think about it too hard, but I do have like Austro-Hungarian and Russian Jewish ancestry.
Mhm.
So it felt normal to have like a, you know, like a Germanic word
Mhm.
in my name as well. I have blonde hair, you know. I was like, this tracks. I think this tracks for me. But yeah, I just came up with it. It was the one I hated least, and I was like, I like it, leaving it, using it. And I wanted my first name to be Laura. I wanted to be known as Laura, because that
Mhm.
is my name. I feel very connected to my name.
That's good.
Yeah.
So being queer, you're often labeled as a queer artist instead of just an artist. So how do
Mhm.
you navigate that and embrace it in your work? And would you rather be labeled as just an artist?
I don't think I mind either way. I think it's
Mhm.
nice. I don't think any one label sums what anybody is. I don't
Mhm.
think artist completely defines who I am, and I don't think queer completely defines who I am. And when you put them together, that still doesn't even define everything that I am.
Mhm.
Like, I think labels can be, if you're partial to them, if they're helpful for you, they can be a really beautiful way of expressing ownership of your identity and a sense of belonging to a community. And I do feel as though I belong to the queer community, even though
Mhm.
sometimes it feels like the queer community is transformed into something so much bigger than just what I am. I'm like, how could
Yeah.
I possibly how am I queer? How can little old me be queer? I'm so
Mhm.
boring or whatever. Like I'm not,
I
I don't,
understand.
that's the whole point is that one label doesn't encompass the whole.
Yeah.
I'm just one facet of what the word queer can represent.
Mhm.
So I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. I'm happy to be known by either or an artist or a queer artist, but I don't think I can help but tell the stories that are true to my life. And
Mhm.
I do not date men. And so I'm not going to write songs about dating them, you know, like
That'd be weird.
Yeah, that would be exactly. It would be, I say I won't write songs about dating men. And then I'm thinking like Charlie Puth all the time talks about how he writes songs that are just completely fabricated stories. He's like, if I only told songs that were about my life, we would have a very dry well very quickly.
Yeah.
And screenwriters write stories about, characters that have never existed or never lived.
Hmm.
Right. So I say I won't write stories about, I would love that. I would love the challenge of being in a songwriting session and being told, no, 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 Laura, this one's got to be about a man. Maybe I'm writing for another female artist who is straight and I do
Hmm.
have to tell her story, like, because I would love to work in a songwriting session and be pushed out of my comfort zones. So yeah, I'm not going to put any limits on the types of songs I will or won't write. Whether or not they're autobiographical is up for interpretation, I suppose. But insofar as the songs that I am releasing on this EP, not one of them has to do with not one of them has to do with a man, and that's because that's not my lived experience, and these
Hmm.
songs are based on my particular lived experience.
Yeah, so we're coming down to the last couple of questions. So, right now, what is the big dream for you as an artist?
Ooh, the big dream. I don't know that I have one big dream. I dream to be able to do this consistently and always. And I'm the type of person who, whatever I have to do to put food on the table, it'll get done. I'm fortunate enough to have a college degree. I'm fortunate enough to be eligible for jobs that are outside of the music industry or inside of it, but in different parts of the music
Hmm.
industry. I'm never closed off to new experiences. Would say my big dream would be to carve out a portion of my revenue stream that is substantially funded by musical and creative endeavors. But if that's not in my future, if that's not in the cards for whatever reason, it's too hard to do, it's not sustainable, it brings me misery because,
Hmm.
there are some people who love to create and hate the industry. Like Enya is like super duper reclusive. No one ever sees her. You know what I mean? She
Yeah.
carved out a revenue stream for herself, but she disappeared. So I don't pretend to be foolish enough to know what the future holds for me. The one goal I have for myself is to make more, be creative more, share more,
Hmm.
do everything more. And whatever it brings will be the right answer. If it brings me misery, I'll know I have to stop. If it brings me joy, I'll know I have to keep going. If it brings me money, I'll know I need to make sure that I don't start associating the money it makes with the quality of the product and that I
Hmm.
always need to be pushing myself more. There's no such thing as like winning at this.
Yeah.
You have to remain level headed, I think. You have to continue to push yourself, never get complacent, never think that you're hot shit, be vulnerable and honest to a point, protect yourself. But I hope to make this a major part of my life in whatever form the fates have in store for me.
That's a very good outlook on life. If only everybody thought that way.
It's what keeps me sleeping through the night. Like I think it'd be a really hard life if I went to sleep knowing there was only one thing I wanted. I wasn't going to stop until I got it, because you can be amazing at something and you can be the right person for something and you can do everything right and it still
Hmm.
won't happen to you.
Yeah.
So instead of holding on to specific goal, like I want to hold a Grammy in my hand before the year is out, like as if I have control over that, like as,
Yeah.
as if that's an attainable, achievable goal for someone in my position. I could say I would love to win a Grammy in the next 15 years, and that would be a very generous, amount of time to give myself. But I'm pretty sure the Beatles never won a single Grammy.
Hmm.
It's just an award.
Yeah.
And I don't think, just like an award, a goal is an end point. And I don't see what I do as any kind of end point. I see what I do as the journey
Hmm.
itself. The whole goal of my life is to continue on this journey of making music and enjoying it as much as I possibly can. I don't
Hmm.
have a goal that involves a prize or a trophy or an amount of money or anything fixed.
Hmm.
Just simply to be happy doing what I do and to find more time for it always.
And so the last question is, what is the soundtrack of your life?
When you like used to plug in like your old iTunes library or like
Hmm.
Apple Music on shuffle or something, and like all of your saved music just plays on shuffle
Mm.
in the car without you pressing anything. You just plug
Yeah.
it in and all of a sudden it's like System of a Down, and then you hit skip and it's like now playing Chopin. Like
Hmm.
I think the soundtrack of my life is exactly that. When your like whole library of liked music starts playing on shuffle.
Are there any songs in particular?
Let's go to it. Why not? Liked songs. I would say Debussy is in there. I grew up playing classical music and I
Hmm.
played Debussy and I played Chopin. I love both of those composers. I find enormous joy in listening to their work. So shout out to growing up with a piano teacher for a dad. I would say I really, really, really like Rage Against the Machine.
Mm. Yeah.
I don't know why. It's kind of like out of pocket, but when you're feeling an overwhelming amount, Rage Against the Machine helps it pour out of you. I really like Majid Jordan, who they wrote like "Just Hold On, We're Coming Home."
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that Drake song. They're just like undeniably groovy hit makers. I really like Jungle. I like Beyonce. I like Kendrick Lamar. I like what else is in here? I like Steely Dan. There's some old white dad music for you. I love Steely Dan. I love, I really like Charlotte Day Wilson. I like Victoria Monet. I like Jordan Rakai. I like listening to old crooner era music. So I listen to a lot of like Nat King Cole, Sam Cooke. I like house music. So I listen to a lot of Chemical Brothers. I listen to old 90s stuff like Underworld. I like listening to Groove Armada. I mean, I can't even, I don't even know where. I feel like we've covered 17 different genres just
Yeah.
there. I really can't. My Spotify Wrapped comes back like every time with like, you listened to a more genre diverse mix than 87% of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
I'll be listening to like Brazilian We Are the World pop music one day, and the next day I'll be listening to like Fleetwood Mac. I love Fleetwood Mac.
They're amazing. Yes.
I'm one of those weird people who, if you tell me to listen to something, I'll actually go and listen to it. Life would be so boring if it was just Spotify recommending stuff I liked based on stuff I liked.
Yeah.
I actually kind of hate that, and I seek not to experience that. So I make people tell me what they're listening to, even if it's like death metal, and I go and I listen to it. Like, never let them catch you sleeping, you know? Like, bet you didn't think I was going to do that, huh, Spotify?
But your recommendations are all weird now because of that.
They are so jacked up. Spotify has no idea what to recommend me ever. And anytime I'm like, okay, let's see what you recommended to me today, I'm like, ew, no, skip. I'm like super hard to please. I get in these really specific moods. They'll start playing me Jordan Rakai, and I'll be like, God, Spotify, don't you know I feel like listening to Rage Against the Machine right now? I don't want to listen to soft alt R&B.
Yeah.
But yeah. What about you? What are you listening to right now?
Oh God, we get a bunch of music like sent to us for the podcast. So I've been listening to a lot of that, but most of it's not released. So I gotta see what what other stuff I've been listening to lately that is released. I'm looking, let's see. Recently, I've been listening to a lot of Noah Kahan.
Noah Kahan.
Yeah, so I got into him from my sisters because they're huge fans of his, and it was always playing in the car when my sister would drive. I mean, she's a teenager.
K-A-H-N?
Yeah.
K-A-H-A-N?
Yeah. And so they love his music, and it's just like always playing. So I'm like, okay, I guess I should probably actually go listen to it. And then I kind of started liking it, how that works.
Listen to it.
Yeah.
I
And
literally
then,
just hit follow. Like I'm gonna listen to it.
yeah. And then another band that I really like is New Hope Club. They're a really small band. I guess they're getting bigger, but they're from England, and I really enjoy their music. They were actually just out in LA doing a couple of shows.
All right. I'm gonna follow and listen to both of those.
There's probably
Spotify's gonna be like, how? How did you find these? How? Like,
you have to let me know what you think.
word of mouth, Spotify, the best way there is to learn about anything.
Yeah, you have to let me know what you think of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, David.
Do you want to share your socials?
Oh yeah. You can follow me on Instagram at Laura Von Mari, VONMARI. Same thing on Facebook, just like Facebook /Laura Von Mari. I think I made a TikTok, but we haven't started. My agency has just sent me like a TikTok campaign thing, so I'll have to be on there too. But same thing, I'm pretty much everywhere you can find me at Laura Von Mari. It's not really anybody else's name, so you're only gonna find me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, Michaela.
Yeah, have a nice day.
Thank you. You too. All right, take care.
Bye. Listeners, go check it out and make sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at STO Lives Podcast. Thanks for joining us.